Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be very brief. This is part 2 of the Seattle Freeze video that I put out previously, and this is the full interviews. I actually asked a total of 5 questions to each person, and so you'll be able to see the full conversation and layout, so you can get more information about where the transplants are from, see more where the people who are natives, see more where they're coming from. And just, more for entertainment purposes, but there was no way I was fitting all of this footage into the, 15-20 minute video. It just wasn't gonna happen. But I still think it's important to put it out there so that if you're interested in viewing it, you can. Enjoy. So can you tell everybody where you're from?
Yes, I was born in Renton, a little south of Seattle, from this location. I grew up in the Issaquah-Sammamish area. I went to college in Bellingham, go Vikings, Western Washington University, and then settled in Seattle again in 2010. And so I've been here for almost 15 years now.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Born and raised.
Yeah, okay. So as a native Washingtonian, what are your thoughts on the concept of the Seattle Freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon, and have you observed it in action?
Unfortunately, yes, there is a stigma around this region, in Portland also, just this whole corridor of this side of the country where the stigma is that when you meet somebody, they're just pretending to be friendly. They're just pretending to be your friend, and really they're just being polite, and then you presumably never really get to meet that person anymore. I have seen it in action. I'm unfortunately guilty of it sometimes. But yeah, it's hard to explain, but the reason why. But I have seen it in action. I've been trying my best to always be friendly, and
it is extremely loud.
Yeah.
So are you open to making friends with newcomers, and what factors influence your approach to forming new connections with people outside of the region, that are from outside the region?
Absolutely. I'm quite an extroverted. So I love meeting new people. I bartend down in Pioneer Square, so that's a really touristy area. It's really fun to get to know people's backgrounds and where they're from and all of that. So it's really nice to meet new folks that way. So I guess I'm kind of an outlier when it comes to the Seattle Freeze phenomenon. But I think that if you're just friendly and be willing to say hi to people and just keep trying, then eventually you'll meet a lot of local Seattleites. But there's just not a lot of native Washingtonians comparatively as there used to be in the past. So I get really excited when I meet somebody who's a native like I am, but of course I get excited to meet newcomers also. So
yeah. And Cara was very friendly when we met.
Yes.
We met at a party, and she befriended me right away. So not all natives are shunning people. So Seattle is known for its diverse population. How do you think the city has changed over the years, and has the change impacted your view on making friends with people from different states, like the whole, tech industry boom and all that? How have you seen it change?
Yes, I definitely have seen a lot of Silicon Valley moving up here. I think it's just because it's cheaper. It's more, it's less affordable. It's more affordable. It's more affordable than San Francisco and the Silicon Valley and
that's true.
Other big towns, and those. We are a city rich with natural wonders and beauties, and of course we got the big companies. We got Starbucks and Amazon and Boeing, and so it creates a big push for outsiders to come and join the town. And so I have noticed a big boom, especially since the 90s or so. And also during the pandemic especially, I noticed that the homelessness problem has gotten pretty rough around here. But again, it's because we have temperate weather, and it's just a little more affordable than the other big cities in the country. So
do you have any, I don't want to use the word animosity, but because the tech industry has made you know, prices of homes and apartments and things like that go up. So how do you feel about that as a native? Like, are you kind of like, go away, stop coming here? Or?
I think it's a shame, especially when it comes to not only just housing situations, but also like seeing my favorite landmark spots get replaced by Chase banks and all of that stuff. Just it's kind of bittersweet, because I realize that all cities need to change. That's the nature of a city, but it's just not the same city as it used to be from back in the day. We have all these high rises now, a lot of growth, a lot of construction. So I don't necessarily have like anger or animosity towards it, but it is bittersweet though.
Yeah. So you've chosen to stay in Washington.
Yes.
Right? What makes the state so special to you that you've never considered living anywhere else?
I like to tell my friends, old and new, that I feel like I got it right the first time. It's gorgeous out here. I mean, we are close to the ocean. We are just 2 hours away from the snowy mountains. There's like beautiful trees. The air is nice and clean. Yeah, you can't beat the landscape and the mountain rain air. Just waking up and being able to see that on your drive to work every day is just fantastic. And whenever I go travel elsewhere outside of Washington, it just reinforces my decision.
I definitely positively agree with you about the clean air.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I could smell it. The first time I landed on a plane in Washington, I was just like, it smells so like, you know, kind of oceany, but green. You could just smell the trees, you know?
Yeah.
And the air is super clean, and the water, it tastes like unlike any water I've ever tasted.
I mean, the best city water.
And when I say that, I mean it doesn't even taste like really anything, because when you go to other places, you can taste something.
Yeah.
You know, but here you don't taste anything.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like no
it's like
weird
pure
minerals and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you share a memorable experience that highlights the welcoming side of Seattle? You know, challenging that Seattle freeze. Like, what have you seen from other natives where you're like, you know what, it's not that bad?
I would say like the big festivals, the chances to get together. Like we have a lot of great festivals in Seattle. So just the opportunity to see kindness and community and feeling like you're building like up towards something like that's bigger than yourself. And I think that's the part of the freeze that I don't understand where people are coming from, because like we do all get together sometimes, like especially in the spring and the summertime. So that's where I see it the most, is when I'm like, you know, like walking down Broadway Avenue and Capitol Hill and seeing like different faces and seeing examples of the best of humanity at festivals, or like people helping each other out on the water. And yeah, for sure. We definitely have some great festivals out here. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for participating in this. I appreciate you. We're going out. Your name?
My name's Matt. I moved up from San Antonio 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Okay, and what brought you to the area?
Mountains, oceans, 4 seasons, better schools, better work environment, better salaries.
Yeah, so, definitely better salaries for sure. And so that was 3 years ago. Have you heard of the Seattle freeze?
Yes.
And do you think it's a real phenomenon, and have you seen it in action?
Yeah, ish. I was just talking to my tech about it, that it's like chronic RBF. You know, it's like a lot of people got RBF all the time, but people tend to be friendly when you talk to them.
Right.
But people aren't overtly outgoing like I was used to in the South.
Yeah.
So, which can be good and bad depending on the day and what's going on.
Right. So. Have you found ways to navigate that, and which ways have you found to make friends?
I mean, I'm still me, so I still chat with people wherever I want to. Not everybody's receptive to it. It is what it is. They're gonna like me, they're not gonna like me. But no, some of it's just being in the same place, like going to the gym, seeing the same people at the same time. Even then, it took about a year to start to get to know those same faces on a regular basis. But at this point, at least it's like you see people and say, hey, how's it going? Small chat. Otherwise, I had former employees that worked for me that I go see that are kind of my homies at this point. You know, I haven't made too many like new friends from out of state, but part of that too, I think, is just work, life, being a dad, everything else. I get off of work and I'm peopled out and I'm like, I don't really want to go meet people.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm part of the Seattle Freeze now too, I don't know.
Can you share any memorable experience that, helped you feel more connected to the community?
Well, I mean, up here, like, I lucked out. I moved into a very community-ish neighborhood. So right when we moved in, there was a cul-de-sac barbecue. We do cul-de-sac movies. I mean, so my neighbors in particular, my neighborhood, everybody was really welcoming, really friendly. It was old school kind of thing, like day one, we move in and there's a knock on the door and the little old lady next door has got brownies for us. And so that was helpful. It was a soft landing. We also looked out that a lot of the other neighbors had kids the same age as my daughter, and our families get along well with theirs. So it was an easy, fast, kind of integrated experience to move in. Out of anywhere I've ever lived, where I'm at right now was probably my favorite place I've lived. So
Cool. So you're happy?
Yeah.
You plan on staying in Washington?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I love it up here.
Oh, okay.
So no plans on going anywhere. People gripe about the rain, but there's something everywhere. Texas is too hot, allergens are bad, traffic is worse. Minnesota was freezing cold most of the year. Worst case scenario, it gets a little bit gray, put on a raincoat, go outside anyways, you'll be fine.
Right.
So it's not that bad.
I feel that. I agree. And we're here in Capitol Hill in Seattle, which is a very popular neighborhood. And so if you can tell me, when did you move to Seattle and where did you move here from?
Well, not to bore you all with too long of a story, but I actually lived here in 2012 to 2014 with my then husband, and then moved back to the East Coast from New York, moved to Jersey, and then moved back to Seattle in, it was the end of 2017 during the holidays. Ooh, what a time to be new in Seattle, like during the holidays, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. It's end of 2017, and I've been here ever since. Second iteration.
Okay, all right, cool. And so I was just about to ask you how long you've lived in Seattle, but what is it that drew you to Seattle, especially twice?
Well, it's like, why did you move here? Well, the first time around, 2012 to 2014, my ex-husband, well, I'd say ex, right? Former husband was active duty military. So he was actually assigned to the Joint Base down south of Tacoma.
JBLM.
So, and it wasn't like we were forced there. He actually had a choice. It was like there, or maybe like Fort Polk, Louisiana, which if you don't know is the swamps of Louisiana. So I was like, hey, I've never been to Seattle. I've never been to the Northwest. I have lived in San Diego. And so we were like, let's go to Seattle. And so we moved here. And for one of the 2 years, he was deployed to Afghanistan. So I enjoyed much more of Seattle than he did, unfortunately for him. But then after the 2 years, the drawdown out of Afghanistan started, and his Stryker Brigade was closed down, and he was reassigned to Jersey. So we moved to Jersey. Long story short, fast forward, a divorce, a loss of job near Philly. Everything happens for a reason.
You're like divorce, blah, 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 blah.
Door closes, window opens, and I was like, I'm gonna move back to Seattle, because I really liked it there. I thought it was beautiful. I like the fact that there's low humidity, no bugs. I'm Italian from the East Coast. The humidity and the mosquitoes are killing me. So I decided to move back to Seattle, and I applied for a job with the local county and actually got it, which in my career of applying for jobs after post-military service, which I served on active duty, that never happened that quickly.
Yeah.
Got the job immediately with the county out here, and it worked out the timing to move out here at the end of 2017. They gave me the end of the year to take time before I started the job on like the 2nd of January of 2018. So it was kind of cool to have like a month and a half or so off at the end of the year before starting the job. And so so I kind of like on the fly, we were living in Jersey at the time. I said, I'm moving back to Seattle, and then made that decision, and a month later I was back in Seattle. So.
Wow. So it sounds like you've moved around a lot. All right. So the question of the hour, what do you think, and what are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon?
It's definitely like it's a point of contention. It's like, who's to blame? When did it start? Like, I'm not from here, it's got to be the locals. The locals are like, oh, it never happened. It's the transplants are bringing it. And the transplants are like, well, I'm not those transplants. There's those transplants and these transplants. And because I always have to defend, I'm a graphic designer for the county, so I moved here. Yes, for that job, but mostly because I think Seattle's cool. I think like the topography of the region is amazing. It's beautiful. You can't argue that.
Yeah.
Unless you like flat. I mean, some people do, right? But anyway, but it is very different, you know. I go to New Orleans a lot. That's a very lively, very colorful, in every sense of the word, type of city. New York City, I've lived, you know, Jersey and so forth. DC's very government forward. The East Coast is very direct in your face. I would argue that folks out here are not that way. You know, it's a very much more laid back style of life. It's a very much more, I would argue passive, kind of, but not to say that that's a bad thing, but just definitely not confrontational, not like in your face. And so maybe as a result, I would say that whether it be, you know, the indigenous locals, or when I say indigenous, I just mean people who are born here, or the, you know, the transplants who move here for that sort of culture, who like the, you know, the sort of introverted or maybe keep to yourself type of folks. You know, maybe they're lacking in the desire to engage with other people.
Right.
You know, whether it be to say, hey, are you done with that book? Can I borrow that? Or, hey, can I merge into this lane of traffic? Or, you know, hey, are you in line? Can I cut in front of you? Or whatever the case may be, in all facets of life where we need to communicate with people and talk to people for whatever reason. So I do notice that, you know, for better or for worse. So that's definitely, I would say, a thing that I have observed as a person who's not from here. When you talk about the freeze, I would say that yes, in this part of the country, you can't just, you know, walk around and friends just fall into your lap. And I would probably argue that folks who say that, like, it's hard to make friends here, are maybe doing that, where they think they're just going to go sit at a bar and miraculously going to make the most amazing friends and find the most amazing boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whoever. And that's not the case. You do kind of need to work at it. I found that I made a network of friends and like just acquaintances and so forth, and have found partners and so forth by finding things I like and going out and doing those things that I like amongst other people who also like those things. And, you know, just conversation starts up. And then I have now become lifelong friends with a person who I share a business with. 5 years I've known Yasha. And like Facebook will remind me, you guys have been, like, you've checked into 5,000 places. I'm like, oh my God. Like, you know, but it's just, I think you do in this part of the country have to work for it a bit more. I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is you can't just go sit at a bar and hope like to make lifelong friends and say, oh, I don't know anybody. And yeah, I hate to have to say it, going on Tinder and then swiping left and swiping right and like not finding like the friends or the partners of your dream. I think you actually have to go out there and join those clubs and go to those meetups and, you know, go to those sporting events or go to those ballroom dancing classes or, you know, sip and paint, winery, whatever. Mm-hmm. Go find things you're into and then start and actually go up and talk to those people. And guaranteed that they were like, yes, somebody's talking to me too. And half of those people are transplants as well. And they were just waiting for somebody to talk to them too. I think I was just nervous. So as a result, I find myself almost too busy nowadays. So I'm like, oh,
you are definitely busy. You and Yasha are just like, I can't even keep up, man.
So much just going on, but I feel like I think if you want the friends, if you want, you know, to have that network, you need to, not you, but like you, the grand you, need to go out there and just put yourself out there, talk to people, and make that effort. And I hate to have to say it, you need to get up and get out. Like, not just like sitting on your couch hoping like you can go online and find people. Yeah, like utilize those tools, utilize, you know, social media applications and so forth, but like go out there, go to the local park, go running on the track, randomly pass by somebody who's running on the track and be like, hey, do you run here too? Like, I don't know, like, you know, go to your local coffee shops, go to those haunts, go to,
the coffee.
You know.
I think that, I think the thing here too is like a lot of people, because of the weather, a lot of people don't want to get out during, especially during the dark months and the wet months. It's kind of like, it's always, you know, because I'm from New Mexico, and so a lot of people there, when we'd have a rainy day, we're like, oh, today's the day you get to cuddle up and everything. Well, we have a lot of those kind of days where, so it's hard to like get up and go. You have to make yourself, because if you don't make yourself get up and go, you won't.
It's all too easy to be like, well, I don't want to, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm an East Coast gal, I dress, so like when I'm going out and it's raining, I spent way too much time. And I would argue that the folks who are from here, who are, you know, they dress down because of the necessity of the weather. So everybody's wearing, you know, the hiking the rain boots,
People
whatever.
don't really dress up a lot here.
Oh no. But I think it's because of the weather, right? It's very muddy out, it's very wet, and
not
so
today
forth.
though. We have a beautiful day
today. That's for sure. But you know, but that's the same crowd. Seattle people, I'm pointing my finger at you, who are like, you know, we don't use umbrellas and
you control who the people who are visiting because they're using umbrellas. I'm like, I still will use an umbrella here.
Yeah.
If it's,
But sure enough, as soon as it starts to rain, those folks will want to stay inside.
Yeah, or a hood.
So I'm like, brave the weather. It doesn't get that cold and rainy here. It actually, so before I moved here, per capita rainfall, it's actually more in the East Coast, in like Jersey,
Oh yeah, this is
DC.
not even on the top 10 list of cities for rain, and
It's
a lot
just
of people think that.
overcast.
It's like it's just, and the rain is slow and drizzly, and it's more frequent, slow and drizzly, so people get the kind of vision that like it rains more often, but it doesn't.
It's like manageable. It's tolerable. Like you
Yeah.
can go out, throw in a little hood. You're not like torrential downpour, like ducking for cover.
Yeah,
Which,
sometimes we get those, but that's very rare. It's more like cute, drizzly, like it's rainforest. So it's just, So my next question of how ways that you have found to combat the Seattle freeze. So can you share a memorable experience or an event that's helped you to, connect to the Seattle community?
let's see. It was probably many, but one that's sticking out in my mind was towards the end of the dark ages, which we call the pandemic. There was some friends were holding a party where kind of things were starting to open up again, and these were a bunch of people who I've met through my dear friend Yasha, who I believe is also in this movie. But all these folks who have been friends for years, like decades here in Seattle, who I'm like now meeting through her, and we did this like. There's been like 30 people there, and we're all like, let's go around the room before we start this party. It's like, how do you all know these people, and how are you here? And it was interesting to hear the stories of the connection. And you'll hear a lot of people say like, Seattle freeze almost as much as the term the 6 degrees of separation in Seattle, because it looks like a large city, but it's still very much a small town.
It's like a little big city.
Yeah, so just to go around that room and hear everybody's story of how they're connected to each other and how they're all there, and to see myself as now intertwined in that community, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I would argue that it was through Yasha, who I met going to live music shows, who's now my very good friend, very near and dear, and also my business partner. I have now, like, if you were to draw like the family tree, so to speak, like, she's here, and then it's like, it just like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but to like see that realization at that event, and all those folks, and those, like, that's kind of cool.
But do you also think, because I one of my best friends, Yasha's one of my best friends, but another best friend I met through Meetup that's from here, I feel like people who are from here, they're kind of the circuit, like if you can get connected with somebody who's from here,
Gotta get in.
then they know all the people and all the things and stuff, and so it's we're both not from here, so it's like when you know people who are from here.
It's kind of like that foot in the door, and I've almost gotten myself so ingrained in the community, I'll talk to local people who are from here, born and raised, who I know of, venues in town or like things going on in town that they didn't even know about, and they're from here. So I'm like, aha!
There's so many places to check out that you cannot possibly go to every restaurant and every bar and every it's just like there's still places I haven't been after 11 years.
You'll never, not in a lifetime, but it's amazing. I think once you get that foot in the door, and then you kind of pass that challenge, and then you can kind of like meet like friends of that friend, and then you'll start being that person who's out and about. Like today, I popped into on the way home from a thing, I popped at a local venue to get something I had forgotten, and wouldn't you know, I ran into a guy from a band in town that we produced, and I was like, I'm so Seattle, just like running into like a random person.
I have arrived. I'm officially a Seattleite.
Yep.
So find somebody who is a local and who's from here. So we are in Tacoma at Wright Park today. Beautiful day. It's like 82 degrees.
It's fantastic. It's a beautiful Pacific Northwest day.
It does. We do have summer, so yes. Don't let people fool you. Go ahead and tell everybody your name.
Okay, my name's Guy Mon. I'm a local resident, born and raised here in Tacoma, Pierce County area.
All right, and so as a native Washingtonian, what are your thoughts on the concept of the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon, and have you observed it in action?
So it's definitely a real phenomenon, definitely something that has happened. I haven't experienced it. I'm one of the locals, so I know the little tricks, like don't use an umbrella. It's a quick way to give yourself away. But it's definitely something where like new people that are newer to Seattle, transplants from other areas, they very much so just kind of get the cold shoulder. And I don't know if it's something that you can like just pick out and feel, but it's definitely, I've seen it occur. Like people are very kind of like in their own lane, doing their own thing.
Right. As a native, are you open to making new friends with newcomers, like people who have moved here? And what factors influence your approach to forming new connections with people that are from the outside?
Oh, I see. I break the cold shoulder. I am a people person. I love to like make new friends. I go out and I do line dancing. Sometimes I'm a little bit of an RBF, gonna be honest, but I do love making friends. So I'm like one of the ones where I'm gonna take my dog out, we're gonna go for a walk, and I'm gonna be saying hi to people. I go line dancing, so I'm always like, helping people learn the dance moves and everything. So I'm a little.
You break the ice.
I break the ice, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very important, knowing how to do that. Seattle is known for its diverse population. How do you think the city has changed over the years, and has this impacted your view of making friends from people from the outside, like the whole tech boom and all that? What's your opinion on that?
I like it. I grew up here. I've always loved that we are a very diverse area. It's not a one or the other. And so it's always like you're in that mixing pot of all the different cultures and foods and songs and all the different traditions, whether it's indigenous people or different ethnic communities. Like there's so much going on here that I love it. It gives you a different perspective compared to what your norm may be. And I missed the second half of your question.
Has it impacted your view of making friends with people from the outside? Because I've talked to some people who are from here who are like, oh, everybody moved here and ruined it, with the tech industry and, even Tahali, all that sort of thing.
I'm a big techie, so I love tech.
Okay.
So it hasn't actually ruined it for me, but I've heard the anecdotals, like everything's this way or that way now, and I'm kind of for forward progress. I think it's a good thing, but I definitely. I've seen the changes. You can see, in downtown Seattle, just like take the South Lake Union area, like it used to be a little bit low, a little bit shorter towers, a little bit more like parks focused, and now there's all the giant buildings and everything. So you've seen the urbanization and the evolution of the region. In my opinion, it's probably for the better. You have a lot more people, you got to house more people, but I think it's been good overall.
Okay.
I think it's helped the whole region move forward.
So you've chosen to stay in Washington.
Yep.
Okay. So what makes this state special to you, and have you ever considered living anywhere else?
So this is an ongoing conversation because I've had a few friends move away. I love the fact there's 4 distinct seasons here. My family's here, so it makes it really hard to leave. But if I were to move, there's a couple places like Dallas, Texas, LA, Phoenix, like those are like the 3, like the Sunshine Belt. But I think it would be hard to give up being close to family. And I grew up here. You can go skiing in the mountains, you can have dinner in downtown Seattle, and you can end the day on the beach and ocean shores. Like it's having everything within just a few hour drive, if not an hour and a half drive, it's hard to give that up.
Yeah, and ocean shores is really beautiful too.
Yeah.
Like if you were looking for the waves crashing, we have that. You just have to drive a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit south.
Maybe not in Alki, not in Seattle, but yeah, drive a little bit further and you'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. Can you share a memorable experience that highlights the welcoming side of Seattle, like changing, kind of challenging the notion of the Seattle Freeze?
I am Rainbow Network, and I'm a gay boy, but Pride is probably one of my best examples. It's one of those just like giant, it's the largest event downtown Seattle. Over 500,000 people come to it. And it's just like, it's one of those things where everybody is just there and loving on one another, and everybody's so welcoming and exciting, and it's probably one of the few places, like big events wise, that you'll really see the Seattle Freeze like just completely be like gone.
Right.
It's the Seattle warmth. But it's just one of those things where you're there and everybody's like, oh hey, like what are you here for? Like, oh how exciting! Like everyone's, it's a great time.
Yeah, it really is fun. I've gone to many prides, so. Cool. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. So we are here with my friend Catherine. Say hi. Hi. We are in Renton at the Landing. So this is a fun area where there's a lot of restaurants and a lot of fun things to do over here. Can you tell everybody when you moved to Seattle and where are you originally from?
Yeah, hi. So I'm originally from LA. I moved here to Seattle in January 2019. So it's been just a little bit over 5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And well, you just answered the question of how long you've lived in Seattle, about 5 years. What is it that drew you to move here?
Job opportunities. I work in engineering, or worked in engineering, so got a job offer up here. I'd actually lived here briefly in my 20s also, so I knew the area a little bit. And yeah, basically that.
Okay. And then you also you spent some time out of the country as well.
That's right, yeah. I actually moved up here from Brazil. I left that part out. So I'm from LA originally, but I had been living in Brazil for about 4 years. And while I was down there, I got a job up here at, should I say where?
No, you don't have to say
Okay,
where.
yeah. So I got a job up here in engineering, and was relocated and moved from the Brazilian summer in January to one of the coldest winters up here in January. So it was quite a weather shock.
Oh, yeah. What are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon?
I do think it's a real phenomenon. I don't know if it's a freeze, it's been frozen. It's been frozen, didn't just happen. Yeah, it's kind of I think a cultural thing, like people are a little bit more closed off probably. I have made a lot of friends here, including you, but I've noticed most of them are not actually from here, unfortunately.
We're all the transplant tribe.
Yeah, nothing to get. So it's a little bit of a cultural thing. Like for an example, I went on Friday night. I went to hear some live music, and it was like really vibrant, like salsa music. And you look around and no one's moving, everyone's sitting, and that's just kind of like an example of what the Seattle freeze is to me. Just kind of hard to get people to react and respond.
Right.
I was like, are you kidding me? Nobody's dancing, nobody's up moving, what's going on? But
Right.
So people are super nice, but I just think you gotta like try to pull them out of the shell a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you found ways to combat or navigate the Seattle freeze, and what strategies have worked for you to make friends?
Like as I mentioned, most of my friends are probably also transplants. So I think to combat the freeze, talk politics and agree with everything that the people think, and then they'll be your pretty much.
I mean, and we met each other through Meetup,
Right, yes.
so I think you just have to be more proactive about
Yeah.
like putting yourself out there. Can you share a memorable experience or event that helped you feel more connected to the Seattle community?
It's funny, I gave the music example of like exuberant salsa music and no one was dancing, but just through music in general, like it's a very strong music culture and scene here. So I think that's a really good way to connect with the culture.
Overall, do you feel like happy with like the friends and everything that you've made?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you do have to make a little bit of effort. As we mentioned, we met on Meetup. So I think making an effort to like get outside of your comfort zone a little bit and connect with people that you might have stuff in common with. I think that's way to do it. And just embracing kind of the culture for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you move to Seattle, and where did you move here from?
I moved, I moved to Graham, so it's like, about whatever that is, 40 minutes outside of the Seattle area, but I go there often enough, and it's all part of the main suburbs here. I moved here in the year 2000, and I've previously lived in Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, and Florida, but I was coming from Florida when I moved here. In the year 2000, so 24 years ago now.
Oh wow, yeah, so you might as well be from here.
Yeah,
at
so
this
it's been a
point.
while, yeah.
What drew you to move here?
To be honest, I got in a bunch of legal trouble in multiple other states, and this was my last option because my dad lived here. And so I got basically kicked out of Indiana where my mom was living, and then I got kicked out of Florida where my aunt was. And then my only other option was to live with my dad.
Oh.
So that was when I was 14 years old, and everybody said, "You're too much. Head to Washington." So that was it.
I'm so gullible when you say I got kicked out of Florida. I'm like, the whole state?
No, I was on probation in the state of Indiana,
Oh.
and they were gonna put me to juvie till I was 18. So I just fled
Oh,
the
man.
state, and then they sent me a release of probation, and then I started getting in trouble again in Florida. So my aunt was like, "No."
Gosh.
Yeah.
Trouble. Okay. I'm sure you've heard of the Seattle freeze.
I have.
What
yep.
are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon?
Oh, it's definitely a real phenomenon. I think, but I grew up in Kentucky for about 4 or 5 years, for Michigan for almost a year, for Indiana for 3.5 years. I was born and raised in Florida for about 5 years. And my feeling is that it's not necessarily, I don't think like people are just trying to be like angry or cold shoulder to people. I think it's because we live in an area where it's so intense economically. I think people are just more vigilant and focused on like whatever they're dealing with in their own world, that they become a little less aware or like receptive or responsive or empathetic maybe to their environment, because you're just so caught up in how fast things move
Yeah.
in this area, that you might say, hey, how's it going? And they might just kind of, and just keep nodding because their mind's so caught up on whatever they're dealing with in business or whatever else.
They're trying to make that money, so they're not really as worried about like making new friends.
Yeah, they're just maybe in a little bit of a socio-survival mode more than trying to.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. What ways did you find to combat that and navigate it, and what strategies worked for you to actually start making friends?
Yeah, so because I've lived in so many states, there's like it's a little stereotypical, but I tend to know like a James and a John and a Brian and a Savannah, like in every state. Like if you've moved in a few states, you kind of go, oh, that's kind of like the James of this area, So in general, I try to find like a few people that I could connect with, that I maybe resonated with, like people that looked at me in the eyes a little longer than others in the area. But what I realized is that if you like kind of lock in with people a little bit, people will start to lighten up. It's like trying to get somebody out of their vigilant mindset of wherever they're at. And some folks just won't be able to, right? Some folks are, I think, are so caught up on just whatever's happening in their little, rat race that, you just got to be like, hey, have a good day, and not take it personally or offensive if they don't, connect with you. But it's definitely real.
Yeah. Can you share a memorable experience of an event that helped you feel more connected to the Seattle community when you first moved here?
Yeah, so I used to work trade shows. So when I was, long story short, I was working full-time when I was still in high school. So I would go to high school for 4 hours, then I would go to Running Start for 2 hours, and then I'd work a full-time job from like 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then that was at a trade show warehouse within the Carpenter Union's umbrella. And then moving on from that, I would go set up like these exhibition shows, like trade shows, Washington Convention Center. I was the guy that would like set up the booths and the carpet and all that. And these in Seattle for years, one of the guys that would work with these trade show companies. And so we would be there working all kinds of crazy hours. I mean, like if the Starbucks event needed to start at 6 a.m., we'd be there setting up from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Or if an event was in the afternoon, we would get there like early morning and work a 12 or a 16 or sometimes like a 20-hour shift, trying to get ready for these trade shows and then keep them going. And so I got to meet all kinds of different people there. One of my favorite moments was there was a girl out there who was panhandling. This was like when panhandling and the poverty was like not even near as bad as it was now. And she was on the corner across from the trade show center just asking for, I think it said something like, I'm pregnant, I have verification to prove it, I need money. And I took a break from a lunch on like a really long shift, and I just asked her if she wanted to go get a cup of soup, and just got to know her a little bit, right? And that's somebody who would like, a lot of people would be like, I don't know, I don't want to deal with all this drama and dirt and grime and uncertainty, but it was a nice moment for me just to connect with somebody that maybe was a little bit more like how I grew up, right, in that process. So whether or not somebody is like impoverished and in their own socioeconomic trauma, or somebody is doing really well but also caught up on their own socioeconomic trauma, just trying to find moments to disconnect from the rest of what's happening in the city.
Yeah.
And connect with somebody at a human level.
Yeah, because there is a lot happening in Seattle, a lot in the city,
much,
and like you said, all the poverty and the homelessness and stuff, and that can definitely distract people too. And not make them want to connect as much. So, last question: do you plan to stay in Washington, and if so, why or why not?
Cool. What a great question. I think a lot of us who live here, like on the daily, are like, am I gonna? At what point is this too much? Whether it's like, the crime or the education or the politics or the homelessness or the economy, whatever else it is, I'll be here for like a while. I've decided that God has me here for a reason and for a purpose, and we're going to maintain. So our goal is probably to be here at least until my kids graduate high school. Our kids are in a phenomenal school. We're plugged in with a great community. We have a great church, obviously running a brokerage with a lot of really good people. And so my kids are like 9 and 11 and a half right now. So for at least another 9 or 10 years until they graduate high school, we're going to very likely, unless it like got to some like,
something happened.
Apocalyptic level, then our plan is to stay here and to continue to invest into the community. And as much as I respect and honor folks who have to move on for one reason or the other, for providence or politics or whatever else it might be, I think we're going to be here for at least a little while. And while we're here, we want to lean in and make the most of it.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to pull your kids out of their schools and their friends and stuff if you don't have to. So.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, everyone. So we are here with my friend Danielle. Say hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Where are you originally from?
I am from Johannesburg, South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've been in the States. I moved in 2000-ish.
Okay. And what was it that brought you to the United States?
Initially, it was because my mom had moved, and so I sort of just came along. And then she actually moved back, and I ended up staying because at that point I sort of started my life with someone, and so
Yeah.
I didn't want to move back.
What year did you move to Seattle specifically? Was it 2000?
2012, I moved to Seattle. So I'd moved a little bit around
Yeah.
beforehand. I moved to Arizona. I got a little bit of, what that culture was like. Moved to New York, a little bit of California, and also Colorado. Colorado was before Seattle.
Okay. So right before.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what is your opinion of the Seattle freeze? Do you think it's a real phenomenon?
Yes. It is undeniably a phenomenon.
Okay. And in what ways have you experienced it?
I think it's just this ever-present being amongst people within the community of just this aloofness, just this, that camaraderie is just non-existent amongst strangers, unless you're friends or friends with people, but even then, unless your friends are not from here, But even so, when you meet people local to Seattle, there's just that little bit of disconnect that's happening.
Yeah. Did you find ways to combat that and make friends? Like, how did you combat that?
I mean, I think to everybody there's just that human. So maybe guards are just a little bit, higher in Seattle. But once you get past that, once you move, through those walls, and you sort of can, welcome people into your space, they sort of open up themselves to welcome you into their space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think meetup groups are a good way to go. That's how we met.
Yeah,
we met
that
through a
is
meetup
how we
group.
met. Yeah.
So do you feel like after living in Arizona and California and Denver and Africa, what do you feel like the major differences are like socially in, making friends? Is it easier where you back home? Was it easier to make friends than it was here? Like, were people more open in Africa or Denver or Arizona?
So, that's interesting that you asked that. So, South Africa is, for anyone that's been to South Africa, it's one of the friendliest countries in the world. People are just naturally polite, naturally just open and receptive and engaging. And when I first moved to the U.S., and that was Arizona, I think, that was sort of the American culture to me. So I had a culture shock, for sure, in the way that people behave towards one another. And I've been told by many people, oh, well, if you had just come to Texas, or if you just came to, other southern parts of the country, it would have been a different experience. But in Arizona, that was immediately, people were nice, but it was just not that exchange that I was looking for or had been used to or grown up with. And so I felt like people were just a little bit rougher around the edges. And that was my introduction into the American culture. And then I moved to New York, sort of found the same thing. Where I found people were the most sort of trusting and that culture of just, friendliness was actually the military. Actually, I know it doesn't seem like it would be, right? Because they're all tough. But, within that group, there was a lot of trust and a lot of friendships and just, you had that closeness and you felt very connected with people. And then, it was coming out of the military and going back into sort of the civilian world again. I felt that a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then when I came into Seattle, that was just, you start questioning yourself.
You do.
You question your environment.
Mm-hmm.
You're just, is this a real thing? And it must be, because, if you research, you actually see, you're not going crazy. There's just something here you've entered this vortex and people behave very differently towards each other.
Yeah, people are a little bit, it's harder to break through those walls a little bit. People are definitely a little bit more guarded here, and I think that people who are from here specifically already have their friendship groups,
Right.
you know, that they grew up with, so they're not necessarily interested in finding new friends.
Right.
But, you know, one of my best friends I met through a meetup group, and she's from here, you know, so I don't know, like I think it just depends.
Yeah, I don't think it's any one person. I think individually people can let their walls down. I think it's as a group, that group think, you know, when you go to a grocery store or you go out into the public, you sort of are greeted with that. It's not this over politeness, you know. And yesterday I went to a coffee shop and I hadn't really been out of my little, you know, world for a while. And immediately as soon as I walked in and I was just, hi, how's it going? And she said, you know, fine, what can I get you? There was no, I'm great, how are you?
Yeah.
Like there's no interest in me, how I was doing. It's just like, can we just hurry up and get this over with?
Yeah.
You know?
Everybody, it's like they're straight to the point here. It's
Right.
just like, yep, what do you need? You
Yeah.
know? And it's like, oh, okay, all right, then I see where we're at.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And when did you move to Seattle, and where did you move here from?
I moved here 3 years ago, April 2021,
Okay.
and I moved from Chandler, basically Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay, yeah, huge difference.
Yes.
And what drew you to the city?
I actually had a really good friend, well, I have a really good friend, she hasn't passed away, who lives in Maple Valley, and I visited her for the last 5 or 6 years and just found the area beautiful and enjoyed my time with her and just thought I needed a change. I was sick of the heat in Phoenix.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's definitely hot out there. I have a friend who lives out there, and it's like 110.
Yes,
You know,
on a good day.
Well, you've heard of the Seattle Freeze, right?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the Seattle Freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon?
I do believe it's a real phenomenon. I've been out here 3 years, and besides my best friend who lives out here, I have not really met anyone. I have a neighbor who I hang out with, but we have doggy play dates. I have a few friends that I work with, but they have younger kids, and it's more of a colleague situation. And I just find people are not as friendly. I'm very much an extrovert. I'm outgoing. I've moved all over the country, always had really good friendships, and here I don't think I've ever been lonelier.
Oh wow! You know, have you found ways to combat the Seattle Freeze bit?
I've started a meetup group 2 summers ago, and it was kind of more for people like me. I'm a teacher, and I thought, you know, let's see if I can make some friends during the summer, other people who maybe don't have traditional jobs. But it seemed like everybody who joined that group still lived really far away. And we did a few things over the summer, and then once school started again, never heard from anybody. And then this last, I want to say January or February, I started a meetup group and met a few people, met you, but I just kind of, I don't know, it wasn't going in the direction that I wanted. I kind of felt, I don't know, I was like, I don't know. I just kind of, and then like I said, I have some teacher friends who I see every once in a while, but they have kids, I don't, and it's just kind of, it's hard to coordinate. And even my good friend in Maple Valley, she has trips planned. She spends a lot of time with her teacher friends, and I think she kind of wants to keep that separate. I mean, that's kind of her life, and she just has kids too, and she seems really busy. So it's different living here than visiting. Because when I'm visiting, of course, all her time was spent with me because I was visiting. I'm from out of town. It was the whole reason that we were doing anything is because I was there. And being here now is kind of like seeing what everything's like here and really on my own trying to meet people, and then even expecting that I was just going to be brought into her world, maybe having different expectations, unrealistic expectations. It's a whole new game.
It is different when you visit places because they're catering to you. They took a week off so that they could spend time with you. And you're like, oh great, it'll be like this all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the next question is, can you share a memorable experience or event that helped you feel more connected to the community? Has there been anything that you've done or attended that you feel more connected, or do you think that there's something coming up that could make you feel more connected?
We've gone to, Covington has their Covington Days, and they have like movies in the park, and they bring in music, and I mean, we've gone there and we've taken the dogs. And that seems like people there, it's more family based, so people are a little friendlier. But I mean, we still haven't made those connections, my husband and myself. And then, like I said, besides, like, we know everybody on our street. I love the neighbors here. They're really great, and they're super amazing about our dogs, and so but we don't have barbecues or anything like that. But other than just kind of knowing them, saying hi, and then, like I said, I have a friend who lives on the end of the street, a neighbor friend, who has a French bulldog. I have 2 pugs, and so we'll get together every once in a while and we'll play. He and I and another. And my husband and his friend will go out maybe once a month, once every other month to a local bar and play pool or something like that. But that's kind of those. I don't know. Those are the community connections, I guess, that I can think of.
Yeah. That's very cool. What's the tone of this? Is this like generally pretty serious, or is it like fun, playful?
No, this is fun. Yeah. All right. So we are here with Justin. Say hi, Justin.
Hey, Justin.
So, where are you originally from?
I'm from a small town called Florence in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you grew up there?
I grew up there originally. I only lived there before I moved to Washington.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And when did you move to Washington?
I moved to Washington 7 years ago. Moved to Tacoma specifically, and I've only ever lived in Tacoma.
Okay. And you've frequented Seattle quite a bit?
Yeah, quite a bit. My wife, she does her master's program over there. She's actually about to finish that up this summer. Shout out Mary Kate, my wife. And yeah, we check out Seattle every now and again. And yeah, and I work in the Lake Tapps, Bonnie Lake area, but I reside in Tacoma.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you move here from Alabama?
Yeah, so both my wife and I, we work in creative spaces. Like she worked in I worked in digital media, so photography and video stuff. At the time, she worked in a more creative writing space. And in Alabama, there weren't like a ton of job opportunities for us, so we were looking in a different place to move, and the Seattle area of Washington was one of those. We had some friends who lived in Tacoma at the time, and they were a part of this nonprofit organization where they were plugged into an apartment complex, and they would host events for the residents at those events or at those apartment complexes, and their compensation was free rent. And we thought that was pretty interesting, and if our rent was covered, we thought, well, at least that can be covered, and we can kind of figure out finding jobs from there. And so that's what we did. We just pulled the trigger 7 years ago to move to Washington, and we haven't looked back.
So, what are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze? Do you think it's a real phenomenon? Have you observed it in action? What do you think about that?
Oh, it's absolutely real. I think it's totally real, and I think it kind of works as a bug. Like, I think everybody kind of catches it, even the ones that complain about it. Like, I think it's very real where it's, I call it the big dark, which is when around November, late October, where it gets really dark, like at 4 p.m., it's cold, it's rainy, like nobody wants to spend any time outside. So yeah, I just, ever since we've lived here, I have noticed that there are a ton of people, especially my age, that have a hard time of wanting to like hang out, and that takes up a big part of the year. Like, it's May right now, and it's still cold and wet. So yeah, I think that's really weird. And I also say too, like, at least from my experience being from Alabama, there are a lot of career-driven like folks, and I think they're like, I'm kind of like taking this out of the air, but I have a theory that there should be probably a correlation between like people who are very career driven and not having or not taking the time to kind of get out of your shell, spend time with other people, or like get out and be exposed to the communities around you.
Yeah. I think that what you said about the weather is definitely a huge
Yeah.
factor. You know, people are trying to get in out of the rain, and
Right.
it's just really hard to connect. So have you found ways to navigate the Seattle freeze? You know, what ways worked for you to make friends over the last 7 years?
Yeah, so I will say for me personally, a benefit that I had when we first moved here is we had some friends that were already here, and they had met and became friendly with other people who were living in Tacoma. That was something that was like for us that was like really lucky, that we were able to kind of get plugged in with a few different groups. I will say also there's the Meetup app. There's like a few different organizations that you can find on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, where have like running groups, or if you're into a cold plunge, which some crazy people are, including myself.
Recently.
Yeah, like there's like a ton of different groups. There's a bunch of like creative meetups too. There was a thing that my wife and I did last year that I want to do again, which was like, this is really weird, but bonsai. It's a bonsai wiring class, so you kind of create a bonsai tree using like craft wire, of different colors of craft wire.
Really?
It's really tight. But anyway, there are like these very, not just like creative stuff, but there's like some niche stuff out there that you could be like, huh, I wouldn't have guessed. And then of course, you being interested in that, like the likelihood of you running into somebody, meeting somebody who's just as weird as you are in that regard is like high if you go to those things. So that's been my impression, is like, yeah, it takes work. It's not like an easy thing. I would suspect in a lot of like major cities around the US, there are like some similarities, especially when you get older. Like I am gonna be 33 years young this September, and I think there's just like a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into you getting older, as opposed when you're in your 20s, in college or in high school, where you kind of like accidentally like meet your people. I found that to be the case for me, but as I've gotten older, to summarize, like it gets really hard to like meet people. You gotta put in effort.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, can you share a memorable experience or event that helped you feel more connected to the community in Seattle?
Made me feel more connected to the community. The company that I work with is a real estate brokerage, but before that we were a real estate team. The mission has always been to be very community driven. So I think like the sort of big sphere that I've gotten to like interact with has come from that. And just being able to like meet a ton of different business owners, real estate agents. I work for a real estate company, one that Ashley's a part of. Yeah, because we like hold so many events each year, like I've gotten to meet, I mean, that's been the most bang for my buck experience that I've had, getting connected with people.
Yeah, for sure. You are a native Washingtonian, correct? Okay. And so what are your thoughts on the concept of the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon, and have you observed it in action?
So yes, born and raised in Tacoma, Washington, and had no idea that was a thing until I went to college in like 2000. I'm gonna age myself. And everyone in Bellingham that was attending Western or Whatcom would just be waving hi and hello and like greeting you, making eye contact on the street. And I was really taken back by it, and I felt like, oh my gosh, these people are so nice and genuine. But I didn't know that Tacoma had anything to do with like not that until I experienced what I just told you about. So
right.
Yeah.
Are you open to making friends with newcomers, and what factors have ever influenced your approach to forming new connections with people that move here from outside the region? So do you have any hang-ups with that?
No, not at all. I think I'm probably overly friendly and like have no like qualms about like showing people around, or like where's the best coffee at, or maybe like where I shop for groceries, X, Y, and Z, like within a certain community. Like I probably overly share.
And so you don't have any hangups, because I've heard a lot of natives say, you know, when the tech industry started and everybody started moving here, that's why we don't want people from, you know, the outside. Do you have any hangups with that?
I mean, what's funny that you mentioned that is recently, as I'm touring homes and like looking like at the weather and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, man, it'd be super funny to be like, please don't move here because it does rain all the time. That's not true. I want people to experience the beautiful evergreen state, but it is kind of a hang up when, yeah, you kind of want the population to like not get as extreme as it has over time, because obviously I-5 right over the Tacoma Dome, actually that's kind of fixed now. Believe it or not, after 20 years of being under construction. I feel like what they were doing actually worked. But yeah, the roadways and everything can get really like blocked up, and it is annoying.
Yeah. You know, Seattle is known for its diverse population. How do you think the city has changed over the years, and has this impacted your view on making friends with people? You kind of said about like the construction and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, overly friendly with everyone, but I guess I think there is a huge difference between natives from Tacoma and natives from Seattle, to be honest.
Okay.
Seattle, pinkies up. I mean, like they are to the T, and also come across as, my husband and I say this word, like yuppies, meaning they can afford like the Patagonia and those type of like name brand quality things. They may look like an everyday kind of like homeless person, but they are very proud at owning these said products, and kind of like, I don't know, they just have some like snootiness about them. I don't know how to say that. Maybe it's more of like the freeze I feel from them than I do even when I am in Tacoma per se. Seattle is a little bit more not as friendly. Yeah.
And so Tacoma is a little bit more friendly.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. People are more responsive, and like
Yeah.
if you genuinely start a conversation with someone and talking to them, they will talk to you back.
Right.
Versus like Seattle, I feel like they're still just trying to like feel you out. And I experienced that when my kids were like little and at the playground and all that kind of stuff, like in Seattle. So that's just probably my point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've chosen to stay here in Washington. So
reluctantly. I want the sunshine.
What makes the state so special to you, and have you ever considered living elsewhere?
Yes. So it's special because both my husband and I are born and raised here, and obviously I'm very passionate about Tacoma, and that's probably my favorite place to tour homes and sell properties, because it's just so, in my opinion, welcoming and diverse, that I think anyone and everyone can find a place for themselves there. But I do crave the sunshine. So I have talked about Arizona for years and years and years, and we may or may not like retire there if and when that's ever a possibility. Probably not. I feel like everyone at our age group is gonna work until the day they die, but I would definitely be more drawn to the sun.
So can you share a memorable experience that highlights the welcoming side of Seattle, challenging the notion of the Seattle freeze? Have you ever experienced any
welcoming? Probably not. I have not. I wish I could put a positive little twist, but I have not experienced that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's keeping it real. That's keeping it real. And what is your name?
My name is Ali.
All right, Ali. And so you are from Washington, basically,
Yes.
right? Where were you originally from?
Originally, I was from Iran, and then I came here when I was 9 years old.
Okay, yeah, so basically. Okay, so have you heard of the Seattle freeze before?
I have.
Okay.
A lot.
And what are your thoughts on the concept of the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon?
I think a little bit it is. I think it is a lot of times also exaggerated, where not every single person you meet in Seattle is going to be like that.
Right.
So, yeah, there definitely is. I've experienced it myself, but I think also that can deter people into thinking, oh, hey, everyone in Seattle is not friendly or puts their head down and doesn't talk to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you think it's real, but not with everybody?
Yes,
Okay.
it's real, just not with everybody.
Okay, have you observed it in action?
I have observed it. I mean, you see it a lot of times when, you're just out and about in the grocery store or going to a restaurant or bars and just walking past people, you can tell.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I've also, met some incredibly open, friendly people out in those same places.
Right.
So.
Okay. Because I've heard people that are from here say like, oh, well, sometimes we don't like newcomers because they changed our whole economy with like the tech boom and everything. So how do you feel about that?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think in general, definitely. I think that with the huge surge of people coming here from other states, I think we have a lot more cultural diversity here. So it's really nice meeting people from other states. I think where I draw the line is if somebody moves here from another state and they're constantly saying horrible things about Seattle and talking about how much their previous city or state was. That can be a little frustrating, but luckily those people are not too many of them.
So you've chosen to stay here in Washington, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so what factors influence that, and what makes the state so special that you haven't considered living elsewhere?
A bunch of reasons, actually. Well, I built a life here. My friends are here. I own property here.
Right.
So all that stuff is keeping me. But in general, there's a sort of a nostalgia with Seattle that, even though the city has changed quite a bit, there is a level of nostalgia that I remember when I first came here and I was growing up as a teenager and in my 20s. So I think a lot of it is that nostalgia that keeps me here. Just the memories.
Yeah.
And I would really miss it if I moved.
Yeah.
Regardless of the problems, I would still really miss it.
Where would you move if you did move somewhere else?
I would love to check out New Orleans. I've always been interested by that. I love Austin.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Austin.
Yeah, Chicago's fun too.
Right.
But I like Portland too, but honestly, I haven't thought that far. I haven't really thought about which other city I would move to.
Okay. All right. So we are here with one of my best friends, Yasha. Say hi, Yasha.
Hi, YouTube world. I'm Ashley. I grew up here, and I've traveled a lot, so I kind of compare. It's easy enough for me to compare, maybe a general population of another area. And I do think there is something unique to Seattle or the Pacific Northwest that. The reputation or the Seattle freeze comes from something, and I've tried to observe it for as many years as I've been hearing that term, to think well, is it really true? Kind of comparing it to the concept that people are the same everywhere. People are people, but I think this general feeling that people are maybe a little more reserved here, not as maybe not as outgoing or not as social or maybe as warm and bubbly as some other places in the country that I've traveled. So I think that probably is indicative of a little bit of, a chilly air about
a chilly vibe.
A chilly vibe. But on the flip side, I see a lot of exactly the opposite. I see a lot of really great community building and friendship circles and networking. So I think maybe we get a little harder rap than we should.
All right, so are you open to making friends with newcomers, and what factors influence your approach to forming new connections with people from outside of Seattle, people that are not from here that move here? Do you have an aversion to being friends with people that are not from here?
Well, you are a perfect example of a new friend that
not so new anymore.
No, but most of my really good friends I've been friends with since childhood.
Yeah, same with me, yeah.
And as I got to be an adult and certainly had kids, I didn't really have a lot of time. I mean, I would say maybe I participated in that in some way because I was so busy and didn't have a lot of time to meet new people or do things with new people. But I have a handful of friends that either are not from here and that that I met as full-grown adult.
Right.
That we've formed a connection and a bond, and so I definitely, and that because we're an example of that. I definitely am open to, and I love to meet people. I work with people. I work with the public. I love to meet people. So yes.
Okay.
I'm definitely open.
You are. You're never home. Okay, so Seattle is known for its diverse population. How do you think the city has changed over the years, and has this impacted your view on making friends with people from different backgrounds? And if you can kind of take it back to like even before the tech industry boom, like, and the growth in that, like, how's your view changed of Seattle over the years?
It's really hard to think about it outside of the context of tech, because I do think that has a lot to do with the, you know, obviously I think Seattle Freeze, and I don't really know when that term became really popular, but I think it probably predates like the tech boom. But I think, you know, if you look at, you know, kind of stereotypical, the, you know, people in the tech industry maybe are like really into computers and obviously and doing things, maybe tend to be a little more, and I see this kind of in some social circles too, like, you know, because I do a lot of nightlife things, so that's not a, it's maybe a little harder to get people like that are really immersed in the tech industry to be out, like, you know,
Sure.
clubbing and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that it's hard for me to really separate if, you know, before the tech boom, because I can't really remember. And I was a young adult, so I really wasn't thinking about or looking at, you know, kind of population and
Yeah, and you had young children and stuff, so you were busy with that.
yeah, so but I think that has something to do with it. I think, you know, a lot of like people who are born and raised in the Northwest say that, you know, a lot of people who are really into outdoorsy things and hiking and camping and doing like that's sort of a, you know, you get a, kind of a feel when you're in those communities, like, you know, people are pretty, you know, for the most part, like outgoing, and, you know, there's a lot of like hikers groups and, you know, outdoorsy camping groups. And if you go camping, like at campgrounds, like people are really open to you know, hanging out and socializing with people they don't know. That's more of a world that I'm familiar with than the tech industry. So I have some friends who are in that industry and are also really, like, they're musicians too, and they're really social, and they're, you know, maybe the opposite of maybe like the stereotype. So
you don't think that the tech industry boom had anything, like, you didn't see a specific change in Seattle because, like, of the rent prices going up and everything but you're saying culturally you didn't really notice anything else?
No, but that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It's just that I wasn't paying attention to it. But I do think, like, yes, the cost of living, like, that has really impacted and colors everything.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
I think the, you know, tech industry moving in here, you know, not single-handedly, but really helped change that landscape.
Okay. So, all right, now before this next question, I want to just preface that, like, let's leave out any political stuff. Like, I just don't even want to.
Yeah.
All right. So, you've chosen to stay in Washington. What makes the state so special to you that you have never considered leaving, or have you left before you come back?
Well, I did leave a couple times. One as a senior. I lived in England for that year, so that really wasn't like a conscious decision to leave Washington, but it was just to have that experience.
Sure.
But I definitely got to experience, you know, living in another country and kind of comparing it to living here, although that was a long time ago. And then I left a few years after that and went to live in Hawaii for a year.
Yeah.
And that I can really, for myself, notice a difference in what it's like living in a warm, sunny climate versus living here. And it has a direct impact on my mood and my energy level, which I think probably has a lot to do with, you know, or probably helps to foster that, whatever the Seattle freeze is, right? Because it's, dreary and crappy out, like 9 months out of the year.
Well, we've been getting a lot more lucky lately, though. I
Yes.
mean, last year it was like from May on, it was, you know, pretty sunny, like steady, you know, it got warmer and warmer, and we saw less and less cloudy days. So it seems like we're on track for that again this year, possibly.
Yeah.
So.
And it does, I mean, I think it makes a difference. But what is interesting, and this is maybe like, I don't know what to make of this, but it's pretty typical, I think, for a lot of natives who really apparently like the cooler, grayer weather and don't like it when it's sunny and hot. And when it's summertime and we have like a 95 or 100 degree day, I really can see, like, am I really a Pacific Northwest native? Because I am the opposite of most everybody I talk to.
Yeah.
I want it to be sunny and hot.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like it. But then you have to ask yourself, is that conditioning just because they've never lived anywhere else where there's sun shining more of the year, you know? I don't know. It could just be because they're used to it.
Right. So I think not just Seattle, but the Northwest. Like when I have people come here to visit that maybe have never been here, and I will always say, like, this is, I think we have like the best of all worlds. We have a city, we have mountains, we have the ocean, you know, the sound, and we have like, you know, hiking. I mean, that kind of goes along with mountains, but we have all of those things within like an hour.
Yeah, if that. I mean, you can go kayaking at Green Lake right there, you know,
So, and our weather, even though it's, you know, gray and dreary, it's very moderate. And I have lived, or at least traveled, where there's extreme temperatures. And I think, personally, I don't feel like I could live in especially extreme cold. So I feel like the weather here, I don't love that, you know, I wish it was sunny more, but I would take that over extreme humidity or
we
freezing.
actually do have pretty, it's actually pretty humid most of the time here. I think a lot of people don't realize that, but like even I checked today, it was 85. Yesterday it was 100% humidity. So it's just milder. So it's not like Texas humidity or Florida humidity.
Right.
But in the summer, I feel it. Maybe it's just because I'm from the desert, but I'm like, oh my goodness, it can be barely 65, 70 degrees and I'm already like, okay, I need to take off layers. Yeah, and I feel like, you know, because we're tucked up in the left part of the United States, we miss a lot of the storms that just go through the middle. It goes through the middle, it goes through the middle. And then we might get some like residual rain or something, but a lot of things we miss, you know, and I feel like we're kind of isolated up here a little bit. So that's nice.
I think we're pretty lucky.
Yeah, for sure. So can you share a memorable experience that highlights the welcoming side of Seattle, challenging the Seattle freeze notion?
Well, I can share like personally and like a real like current like lifestyle and experience that I am having, that I have, which is like the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years maybe, being involved in being a music promoter in kind of the goth industrial music scene here in Seattle. And I would say that being in that community would like counteracts and contradicts like everything about the Seattle freeze. So whatever, you know, and maybe it's, you know, it's an isolated, it's people out listening to music and, you know, everybody's in a good mood. So you don't really see like, oh, the day-to-day humdrum of life when maybe people might be more, you know, insulated or so. It's not like it's a snapshot in time, but it is a very welcoming community, and I have seen that firsthand and experience it. And this is, you know, even though I grew up here, most of like the people that I met in the last 5 years, I didn't know. I mean, some kind of overlap connection from teenage years, like just out when we would go dancing, but I have like a whole new friendship and acquaintance circle that I didn't have, that I met as an adult, and that have like just welcomed me and vice versa. So.
And are any of those people in that community not from Seattle?
Yeah, a lot of them are transplants,
okay.
And there's a lot of people that are natives also.
Oh. Okay. So there you have it. It's all about finding a community that you fit into, or something, you know, pick something that you like and go
Have
to the
something
events.
in common
Yeah.
with, and that fosters positivity.
Yeah, because I met all my friends through Meetup, you know, or inadvertently through Meetup. I met her through a friend that I met through Meetup, and we met at the party. Was it at the party that he had? So it's like you start just going around in circles and meeting folks. And so I would say Meetup is a good place to start if you don't have a community yet. All right, so we are here with my friend Sarah. Say hi, Sarah.
Hi. I almost said hi, Sarah. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Ashley's viewers.
So when did you move to Seattle, and where did you move here from?
I'm from Missouri. I'm from a city, Springfield, Missouri, about 170,000 people. It's a college town in the southwest corner of the state. Everyone's like, oh, Kansas City or St. Louis, when I tell them I'm from Missouri, but neither. And I moved in August of 2011, so it's almost 13 years, which is wild to think, you know, it's been that long.
And what was it that drew you here when you originally moved here?
A couple things. I always liked the idea of living. I had lived in Missouri my whole life. I was just getting fed up with the Midwest, same old every day. The town I lived in didn't have good career opportunities. If you weren't married by 25, good luck. The dating situation wasn't good anymore. Jobs were just not available, even before the recession. I just wanted to change the scenery too. Like, I like the mountains, the ocean, things like that. We don't have that in Missouri, so kind of just the culture and all. I just wanted something different. I wanted I was like, if I'm gonna finally move away from this place, I'm not gonna move to St. Louis or Dallas. Like, I am going to move. I am going to fly the nest. So yeah, I had a friend who lived out here and talked me into it. So it didn't take much convincing either. I didn't have a job. I just packed up the U-Haul. My brother came with me. We jet set it out here.
So after being here for 13 years, what are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze? Do you think it's a real phenomenon, and have you experienced it?
Oh, yes. So after saying all that about Missouri, I will say people are just friendlier there. Like, you just can go shopping at a grocery store and people will just come up and start chatting with you. And I wasn't from a small town either. Just people, you know, if you're walking in a park or walking on a sidewalk, people just make eye contact with you, say hi, you know, hello. At the very least, you say hello to people as you pass them. You might mention that the weather's nice or something to strike up a small conversation. When I came out here, it was just shocking. Like, people look down. Some people say hi. I don't want to generalize, but yeah, no one in the store is talking. I remember one girl I saw, she had this like cute blue highlights in her hair, and I was like, oh, cute highlights. She like jumped back and looked terrified for a second. Like, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me? And she's like, what? Oh, you're complimenting my hair. Thank you. And I just thought, what? I feel like I terrified this person. I was just passing a compliment. Yeah, I was a stranger. I'll never see them again. But back home, that's what you do. If you see something nice, I'm like, Ashley, beautiful eye. I don't know you. I love your eyeshadow. Cute hair, like your dress. Strangers will say that to each other. I love it out here. There's things I like, things I don't like. But yes, I did notice very quickly, like, people are a little more introverted, it's a little harder to get to know people. People definitely, I've noticed, have flaked out here when making social plans. It's just back home where I'm from, you don't cancel unless you really are sick.
Yeah.
You're not fake sick, like you're really sick, or like you're in a car wreck or something. You're holding true to your plans. But here it's so normal. You make plans with people and like 30 minutes before, sorry, work is this, I'm tired, can we do it? Or they just don't even show up. They don't even like cancel or tell you they're not coming. They just don't show up, and yeah, you figure out after a while, okay, they're not coming.
Yeah, not even a notice within a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes it's like 20 minutes before, like, oh, you know what, I forgot I have this thing going on. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm already here.
Yeah, that too. I'm saying, oh, I forgot that was today, kind of thing. Is it too late? I'm like, yeah, I've been here for 10 minutes, and now you're like, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Anyway, yeah, so I try not to take it personally, but yeah, I did know that. It just seems like more back home, there's more of a community. You think more about people. Even if you don't want to do something, you think about, but I don't want to let this person down. They planned something, they're expecting me, I can't do that. Now here it's just more like, don't feel like it, not going to do it kind of thing. No remorse, no guilt. I'm just going to do what's best for me. And of course I'm generalizing, not everybody's like that, but yeah, I've definitely noticed a lot more of that. Just the more Netflix and chill culture out here. You know?
Have you found ways to combat the Seattle freeze?
You can definitely get around it. It takes time. Meetup has definitely helped. I find it's a little harder to use after COVID, but before COVID, and again, it could be a mixed bag. People, you can't expect to make your best friends like after going to one meetup happy hour, but I've just found joining social clubs, meetup clubs, Facebook groups, similar interests, like I like hiking, but find similar interest social groups. Even just seeing neighbors, I'll just say hi to them. I'll make that eye contact, hi. I don't have to get in a conversation with you, but just an acknowledgement, just a brief social connection. So
and we met through meetup.
Yeah, we met through meetup, exactly. She came to one of our brunch morning meetup things, and then you just kept coming, and we vibed. Even the first one, we vibed really well, and you just kept coming, and we kept vibing, and then we took the friendship offline.
Yeah, I know, and that meetup group we're not even in that meetup
No,
group
it doesn't
anymore.
exist anymore. It's disbanded. So.
Can you share a memorable experience that helped you connect to the Seattle community, maybe even aside from meetup?
What do you think? There were a couple. When I was younger and first here and single and going out all the time, just going to a bar with, even with just one friend, you just start talking to other people, and then you get out your phones, let's exchange numbers, after party, let's go here, let's go there. So, there was still some of that back, but I was in my 20s back then too.
Yeah.
That wouldn't really, I don't think, if you're in your 30s or 40s, it may not happen today kind of thing. But yeah, I can, with the hiking group, I remember there was, a friend I'd kind of known had agreed to give me a ride to a hike because I still wasn't comfortable driving all over the place. So we rode together, and then I was hiking with this big group, and it was kind of going slow and people were getting in different directions. But there was another friend, well, it wasn't my friend yet, but we were just connecting and having good conversations. And then we saw this mother bear with her 2 cubs, and she kind of warning charged us, and it was crazy. We saw these cubs up close, but we've been friends for life since then. It was kind of the same thing. Are you on Facebook? Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Is it okay if I friend you? Sure. And text you? Yeah. Is this you? It's me. So. Yeah. We're still very, very close friends. I was the best matron of honor at the wedding. Yeah. So that was one that was one of the first friends I made.
Do you foresee yourself living here for the rest of your life, or is there, do you see yourself leaving Seattle at any point?
Hard to say, because I say never. I don't think I'll ever go back to Missouri, pretty sure on that. Sometimes I think about, because the cost of living is so high and the traffic and just crime has gone up, and, it is harder to make friends here. So sometimes I think about maybe Oregon or Idaho or Colorado. I want to live in if I were to move, I want to live in a mountainous state because I do love the mountains. The outdoors is very important to me. But now Colorado's kind of in this, I don't know if you've heard, but Denver area, Boulder, they are also exploding with population growth and homelessness and high cost of living. So hard to say. And like I said, I do like my job here, and I do work hybrid, so I do have to be in the office a few days a week. So that can't, as long as I'm working there, I can't leave. Whereas my husband, he is 100% remote, so we could, in theory, live elsewhere if it was just up to him. So the point I'm getting to, at this point, no, but who knows, 5-10 years down the road, maybe an opportunity will present itself. And
maybe closer to retirement, going somewhere more affordable.
Yeah, or even not even that far, but just someplace. But again, I told him it's got to be mountainous. I'm not living in some flat state.
Yeah, you're a hiking girl for sure.
If you'll ever see my hiking pictures, you'll understand. It's great to save money, but what happens if you're here's the weekend, I have nothing to do, I'm just gonna watch TV No, I didn't come out here so I could watch TV all day. I want the outdoors life.
The water and all of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your perspective on this.
For sure.
So can you tell everyone your name?
Justin Vahle.
All right. And you are not originally from Seattle, right?
Correct.
Okay, where are you from?
South Dakota originally.
Oh, okay. What part?
Yeah. Rapid City on the western. Yeah.
Okay. And when did you move to Seattle?
I didn't directly move from South Dakota, but I spent a little time in Pennsylvania and overseas a bit, and I moved to Seattle in 2001, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it's been a while. Yeah. And so what drew you into the city to move here?
I had 4 college rugby buddies that were living out here, and I'd come to visit them, and actually visited them during Seafair one summer. It's gorgeous and beautiful, and they were telling me it doesn't usually get sunny here until around 4th of July. I didn't believe them because it was beautiful. Anyway, that's not the only reason, but they were out living out here. I decided to interview for a job out here, and I moved out. And then my 4 buddies all moved away probably within a year.
Oh, wow.
But obviously liked it out here because I'm still here. So.
Well, you've heard of the Seattle freeze, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon?
Well, you know, I can kind of take it from perspective when I first moved here versus now. Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, but it's kind of not just Seattle specific, I guess. I kind of look at it, if you go to a city that has too many people that are from that city, then usually people kind of already have their friend groups and things like that, and they're not as willing to be open to meeting new people. If you go to a city like Austin, Texas, where no one is from there, everyone's from a different location, everyone seems to be the opposite of that. So it's kind of a product of the environment as well. I don't know if it's just specifically a Seattle thing, or if it's just, when I moved here 20 years, there was a lot of people from here. There wasn't too many people coming here like they were going to other areas like Southern California, right? You go down to a bar in Southern California and a lot of people aren't from there. They're from all over. They're from the East Coast, they're from the Midwest, they're from the West Coast. So I think that was a lot of it. Now, what I can't tell you is that maybe now I'm part of the Seattle freeze because I've been here so long and I have my base of friends and everything like that. And there have been a new base of people that have moved into the area via Amazon and Microsoft and Google and all those jobs. But I don't know if they're playing into that cultural thing like you see in Austin, Texas, where everyone's just kind of not from there and they want to meet and greet people. So I don't know.
Right. Do you find that it was hard for you to make friends when you first moved here? And if it was hard, how did you combat that?
Well, I've always kind of had a bit of a cheat code because I play rugby, and rugby has the same global community. So if when I moved to the East Coast, they had their own kind of freeze there, but I immediately had a rugby community, and then I met through them, met their friends. So I've never really truly experienced it because I've had that fortune of being part of that rugby fraternity. But I have seen it through friends that are outgoing and coming in from other areas and having a bit of a struggle here. So
yeah.
But I have actually an example where I tend to meet people also not from the Seattle area. So I tend to make good friends with people that are from other parts of the United States that have moved here. Maybe because they're a little bit more open to meeting people. So I've met a lot of people and I can kind of connect with them right away because just we're in the same boat where we don't have family here. Mm-hmm. So we kind of bond that way where, if you grew up here, you went to elementary school, you've got friends from all different, levels of your life, your family's here. You kind of have your own community already.
For the viewers that will connect with the rugby thing, when you say it's a global community, so you're saying that you could move anywhere and you could find a rugby team to join, and then you would feel automatic, camaraderie or like they're
pretty much
accepting?
Pretty much, because it's kind of based on a global culture. So the rugby culture is the same. You meet people from other countries, they have kind of the same customs and kind of the same way about them. So it's based on a global culture, not based on the local culture where the team is formed. So I played rugby in Spain. Obviously there's a language barrier there, but they actually speak English because English is prominent in the rugby community as well. So and the culture of rugby seems to stand up at multiple locations in multiple countries. It's interesting.
Interesting. All right, everyone. So we are at El Corazon, and we are here with the owner. Say hi.
Hi. How you doing?
What's your name?
My name is Dana Sims, S-I-M-S.
You are not originally from Washington. Where are you originally from?
I grew up in Chicago and traveled a lot of different places and lived a lot of different places, but I've been here since 1993.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a long time. What part of Chicago did you live in?
A suburb on the northwest side called Inverness, which is sandwiched between Palatine, Schaumburg, and Hoffman Estates.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Inverness, okay. Yeah. And so what drew you to the city? Why'd you move here?
Well, I've been in the music business my whole life, and at that point I was working in records, and That's when the whole grunge thing was percolating here, and there was this independent label that's still going to this day called Sub Pop, and they offered me a job, and I felt like I'd hit the jackpot because I didn't have to live in New York or LA, and I could be in the popular music business. So
Right, and at that time, grunge was popping. Yep. Still is for me.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Seattle freeze? You heard that term?
I'm familiar with the term, yeah.
Okay, and so do you think that's a real phenomenon?
Yes and no.
Okay. Why?
Want to explain?
Yeah.
It can be a phenomenon if you allow it to be.
Okay.
And it also depends on your environment. In general, in the city, I think it's real. I go running every day, and there's nothing more frustrating when you pass someone and you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're just like, it's like, okay. Or when you hold the door open for someone, because that's just good Midwestern manners, and they just walk right through and don't even acknowledge that you did something nice for them. So in that respect, I think so. But then I work in the music business, and I moved on from records, and for 20 years I've been in this place doing live music, and we're predominantly an all ages venue. And when you're in the music community and an artistic community, you don't really see the freeze as much, because music is one of those, for lack of a better, I mean, it's a product, but it's a very emotional product, and it sort of breaks down barriers. It does, music can unite people.
Yeah.
And so most people that are regularly coming to the environment in which I predominantly operate are their guards down a little bit more. They're here to release, have a good time, be entertained, and a lot of the, for lack of a better term, BS that's out there in the real world sort of gets left at the door. So I would say the environment that I've created and I'm a part of doesn't seem to have nearly as much of a freeze, because people let their guard down. They're here to have a good time.
Yeah.
But I can also see on the other side, when you have a city with a bunch of transplants and, becoming more and more a bunch of computer programmers and people that spend a lot of time in front of a computer and don't really work on their social skills, I can see how that would be a real thing.
Yeah.
But, you have the power to whether you want to experience the freeze or be a part of the freeze. If you act that same way in public, you're not going to have a different point of view. But even though some people act that way, the examples I gave outside of here, it doesn't deter me from continuing to be the extroverted, polite guy that I am.
Right. And I think something you said, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier too, is that it's easy to get caught up in the freeze. So you see other people being that way, and you're like, well, I'm also going to do that same thing and ignore people and
Well, the other thing too is I grew up in Chicago, which is a really big, diverse city. And the one thing that I've always liked about Seattle is that culturally it has everything that you want in a big city, but it's also small enough that you feel like you can be part of a community. It's not so overwhelmingly large.
Right.
And it's sort of like that, there are a group of people that you get to know and you run into them everywhere, but you also have the opportunity to meet new people at all times, because it's just sort of that sweet spot where you can have a community but still constantly be exposed to new things.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I mean, it's a diverse city as well. I mean, I guess the freeze is what you make it. You can't make everyone be an extroverted ball of joy, especially when you have rain half the year and whatever else. But
yeah.
But while I acknowledge that there are certain types of people that might either believe or contribute to that, I would argue there's a whole other group of people that are quite the opposite.
It's just kind of like finding a match to those people, finding them. And those people that you want to be more extroverted, you kind of have to come to places like this and go out.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it just depends, a lot of it depends on your spirituality and your outlook on life, but there's a little saying, in the universe, it's like whatever you put out there, you're more inclined to get back.
Sure.
So if you buy into the freeze, you'll probably experience the freeze. If you want to sweep that aside and have more positive experiences with people, then you need to put it out there or you're not going to get it.
Right. Maybe if you can think back to when you first moved here, what strategies worked for you to make friends, when you first moved here?
Well, I mean, I've always been a part of the music community, whether I've been working in it or I've always been a working musician as well, playing in it. And I don't know, it's just a very social job. You're around a lot of different people all the time. You're going into different clubs, you're playing with different bands, you're making new fans. So, I mean, for me, it was just finding a community that I felt comfortable in. And, you know, as you spend time in the community, your points of contact grow.
Sure.
And, you know, as long as you're open to that and you are a good communicator and a good listener, you can get to know a fair amount of people in a short amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. Since you've lived here for so long, would you ever consider moving somewhere else, or what is it that keeps you here? I know you have your big music community, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, I've put so many anchors down with my job and my building and other things. I'm pretty much here for a while. However, you know, I do like to experience the world, and I'm not open to, I don't think I'll ever give up my place here, but as I get older, I'm probably open to experiencing some other places as well, both because it's just good for the soul, and also, you know, this isn't really the thrust of what we're talking about, but I mean, like, you know, how the city of Seattle is now compared to how the city of Seattle was in the 90s is kind of like really different.
Yeah,
and
from what I hear.
You know, all my longtime friends here, we always sort of joke, it's like if we were sitting around having coffee in 1995 and we were told all the things that the city would be challenged with and going through at this present time, you would think it was crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And but here we are.
Yeah. Oh man.
But it's sort of the same thing. It's like you can try to make the most of it and be a positive difference maker, or you can sit around and complain about it. And while I am disappointed in some things that are going on in the city, you know, all I can do is my part and have my input in efforts to improve those things.
Yeah.
Because sitting around complaining about it isn't going to solve it.
Yeah, it's not going to solve anything. So we are here. Say hi.
Hi, my name's Loren Smith.
Loren, so you are a native Washingtonian, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what city are you from in Washington?
So originally I'm from a really small community. It's McCleary, Washington. It's about 20 minutes southwest of Olympia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just on the highway, like that scenic highway out to the coast.
Yeah, it's so pretty in Olympia.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you also lived in Seattle for a while as well, right?
I did, yeah. So I kind of hopped around a little bit, grew up and spent most of my formative years in McCleary. And then my folks moved and built a home in Olympia proper. So finished up high school there, started college there, left for the military, all with Olympia being my home base. And then coming back from the military, I officially rooted myself in Seattle.
And what areas in Seattle did you live in?
Let's see, my very first spot was on Capitol Hill, right off of Olive Way. And then from there, I moved down to another spot that was, I guess, technically, is that First Hill? I think it's First Hill. Mm-hmm. Just right above the convention center. Okay. So my apartment, I had a sweet view. It looked right down the freeway park and the convention center. It's pretty cool. And then also lived in a couple places over in Lower Queen Anne, and then downtown on Lake Union off of East Lake.
Okay.
In the Cascade District.
So you've been all around.
I think that was all close.
Okay, so you've heard of the Seattle Freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on the concept of the Seattle Freeze, and do you think it's a real phenomenon, or have you observed it in action?
Yeah, definitely observed it in action. Very familiar with the term. Because it's a real thing. You got a lot of folks, I think, with that area, the greater area being a hub for tech. Mm-hmm. You get folks coming in from all over the world. So a big melding of cultures from and then where we're poised on the Pacific Rim. Mm-hmm. But my experience, I feel, was a little bit different in that Seattle seems to be the neighborhoods themselves are little enclaves. Groups and friend groups seem to form in similar ways. Mm-hmm. And my in was through the restaurant world. And it's a really small world once you're in it. Everybody knows everybody. So being more or less an extroverted person and being out and meeting lots of people, I think I quickly kind of immersed myself in that layer of it. So didn't feel the freeze as much as I think I might otherwise have.
Do you think that also may have something to do with that you grew up in here and maybe had a group of friends too? Did that help a little, or you felt more comfortable, or?
Maybe, but I kind of started from scratch up there. I had a few friends when I did make the move to Seattle from Olympia, where I've met up with friends that I grew up with from Olympia, but for the most part, my Olympia friends and folks from McClary and other areas like kind of stayed in those areas or moved to different places in the country. But when I moved to Seattle, I really kind of started from scratch.
Got it. Okay. So are you open to making friends with newcomers, and what factors influence your approach to forming new connections with people that moved here?
I am pretty open.
Yeah.
I think I've had people describe me as like a Labrador. Like I just come with my tail wagging.
You're very friendly.
Thank you. Like I think feedback I received is I'm usually the one like with even in a restaurant capacity, like new hires coming in, I'm quick to introduce myself to them, ask what their name is. I'm just kind of being proactive that way.
Yeah.
But I just enjoy meeting people.
Yeah.
And in Seattle and in the Northwest, I feel like if you're walking down the sidewalk, for instance, downtown, it's almost like anticipated, like you don't look and force a smile on somebody else's face by smiling at them. It's anticipated for everybody just to be in their bubble. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like eyes down, whatever, or they're talking in amongst themselves, but not necessarily a lot of interacting. But that said, I found when I do try and gross, was that the right word? But when I try and just force a connection, sounds kind of aggressive, but when I'm proactively just saying, hey, I found that I've got a lot of positive responses from folks once you get to chit-chatting about what they're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a separate togetherness that you feel like it's when you're out, like you said, walking on the streets or something, or if there's an event, outdoor event, especially outdoor events. You're like, oh, everybody's here and we're all together, but we're still in our own thing, in our own zone.
Yeah. And I've been guilty of that, of course. I mean, it's just human nature, right?
Sure.
You get in your head, you're thinking about something in your life.
Yeah, we're pack creatures. And
sure.
Sure. Yeah. So, Seattle is known for its diverse population. How do you think the city has changed over the years, and how has this impacted your view of making friends from outside the region? And you did mention tech, so I kind of want to focus on what you've seen since the tech boom, and how has that shaped your view?
Yeah, let's see. I think it was 2006 when I first moved up to Seattle. 5 or 6, I think it was closer to 6. And it does feel like there's been a bit of a shift. The area's grown. Mm-hmm. You see way more cranes popped up over the last 10 years. For
sure. And
you could look at the stats, I think, and it would support the growth in population too. Mm-hmm. And certainly, I currently moonlight at a restaurant in Bellevue, mm-hmm. and I've been over there in different capacities, already for about 10 years. It's just at that time, I've seen a lot of high-rises go up, and that many more people coming in, because it's commercial spaces, but also residential buildings to accommodate the inflow. But you get a lot of folks from top of class coming from India, other places in the world, China. But then also you get a lot of folks coming up from California, and everybody brings their own culture. Talking about diversity, I think I have a buddy who's studied this extensively. He's an author. And I think it's tempting to say that that area is predominantly Caucasian dominated. Mm-hmm. But census data doesn't support that. It's actually that I think Caucasians are a minority now in the greater East Side area. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I noticed that whenever I've, in the past, I've done DoorDash over there, and you get to see certain mm-hmm. things by doing that. And I'm like, oh wow, but it's little communities, there's an Indian community,
totally.
Where it's these are all the Indian stores and restaurants and things like that. I'm like, oh, okay, picking up from over here. And then there's an Asian community, and then it's interesting.
It is, yeah. And it is kind of enclaves like that, mm-hmm. I've noticed. But people are awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, by and large, I think it is a different community in the sense of the melding of cultures, and maybe how per capita there's a highly educated element.
Right.
So I think that just kind of brings a type of personality, a type of culture to influence what you might experience just conversationally and casually. But once you get to chit-chatting, people I think are people.
Yeah.
Largely, right? I mean, you just peel back the layers a little bit. And
peel back a few more layers here.
Yeah, just a lot of good, decent people that are like every other good, decent person.
Right. So you've chosen... I'm going to edit this out. So you've chosen to stay in Washington. What makes the state so special to you, and have you ever considered living elsewhere?
Yeah, great question. I have. My wife and I have considered on a number of occasions living elsewhere. But our reasons for like moving elsewhere happen to also be like what attracts me to this area as well. It's diversity and like just the wanderlust. It's just like wanting to experience more. The world is an amazing, incredible place. And I love the Northwest for that. It's hard to leave because you have so much diversity. Like in geopolitics, culture, just like the natural beauty as well, geologically, it offers a lot, and it's hard for me to give that up. And it's home.
Yeah. And we got the water, the mountains, like everything's here, so.
Not without its own issues, like anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think you'll find that just about anywhere. I think that's also helped keep me rooted. Like I would love to have other touchstones and places to call home and travel. But I've come to realize in my travels that you're always going to find issues no matter where you're at.
No matter where. Yeah. I've learned that wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
So,
that's it.
Okay, so can you share a memorable experience that highlights the welcoming side of Seattle challenging the Seattle Freeze?
Good question. Let's see. I can't think of any one particular instance that stands out, but I can think of plenty of memories where I've come in as the new person, a new member on a team. Well, actually, here's one. When I was working with a restaurant group in Seattle, Swartz Brothers, and I was working with their catering division. That was disbanded, and I got put on a pause for a second for about a month, where my general manager was like, hey, if you can sit tight, I'm gonna find you another spot in the company. This happened around 2012, and I did, and she got me a spot in one of the company's flagship restaurants in Bellevue, and that was kind of like my real introduction into Bellevue, by the way.
Yeah.
Like fully as like coming and going to the same spot several times a week. And I didn't know this at the time, but they had just had massive layoffs at the restaurant. And so people were kind of on pins and needles. But because I'd already been with the Swartz Brothers family for so long, I didn't feel like an outsider so much, but I was, and it was kind of in my nature just to like put a big smile on my face and walk around and act like I belong. And at first people were kind of like, who the heck is this guy? Like, he just got put in the middle of the roster, and we just had all sorts of cuts, and it's like, it seems like he feels really comfortable, but really quickly, I think folks felt that I was genuinely interested in getting to know them and to bring value and to be a part of the team.
Yeah.
And I felt welcomed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So people kind of took me under their wing, showed me like how things are done there in a way that was critical, but also like it builds you up sort of a way.
Yeah.
Constructive, I guess.
And you put yourself out there, so that also kind of opens the door to allow people to do that.
I did, yeah. And I guess if you don't do that, that's when I see the Seattle Freeze being 100% a reality.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to see people doing the freeze thing, and they're like, fine, I'm going to do the freeze thing too, and I'm not going to talk to you either. And so everybody starts getting like...
It's reactive, right?
Yeah,
I agree with that. And even sometimes when you put on a smile and you go out there and shake hands, you can still be hit with that, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a little bit of a smile, but it's a thin veneer and just cold on the other side of that.
All right, and just the last question, I'm just curious. If you and your wife ever did move, where would you move to?
We have talked about this recently. I have friends who live in Texas, like Houston and San Antonio and Austin area.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Austin.
I've heard good things too.
Yeah.
And I visited. I know that I like it from what I've seen. I don't know yet if I really want to make it home, but it's a draw. It kind of like anchors me into another region of the country that interests me too. I think you could like do offshoots that would be pretty neat for day travel weekends, whatever. Just kind of generally being in all the benefits of being in an area. But Arizona's another place, but that's mostly because we have family down there.
Got it.
So there's already been a slight migration, so it wouldn't feel like we would be completely starting over.
Sure.
if I was like just so brave and was going to start over completely from scratch. I've always been interested in the Northeast, but I've never been there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I've always wondered about places like New Hampshire and
Yeah.
there's like certain places where it's just like a big question mark, like what's it like there? You
Yes.
know, like or like Delaware. I'm like, what happens there?
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, who's there? What happens? What do they do there? I don't know. You just know it's a state and that's it.
That's
so.
about my understanding as well.
Yeah.
But it looks cool on TV and the internet. And I understand they've got all 4 seasons and a ton of history for what we consider a deep, rich history.
Yeah. Cool. And I'm here with 2 more people. What is your name?
I'm Sara. Nice to meet you.
Hey, I'm Cassie.
Sarah and Cassie. All right. So you both are from here?
Yes.
Yep, I'm from Seattle.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the concept of the Seattle freeze? And do you think it's a real phenomenon and have you observed it in action?
I don't even know what the Seattle freeze is. So I'd say it's not a real phenomenon because I've never even heard of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you?
I've never heard of it, but...
Okay. So it's a phenomenon where people believe that, well, people who move here are transplants like myself, find that it's hard to make friends. People are kind of like often, cold and maybe a little,
Standoffish a little bit.
Yeah. Standoffish is probably a good word. So what do you think now?
I think that it is very real. People here tend to have like aggression, lots of anger. Like if you go out to the club, like you're not gonna be met with people who want to like socialize. They're gonna be talking with their friends that they came with. So you might not even like meet or socialize with new people. It's very, very hard to like put yourself into a community that you're not already from. So I believe, sometimes people are very closed off at like making new friends.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with what she said.
Yeah. So as a native, why do you think people are like that?
I don't know if it's maybe like, I don't know if it's the weather, like it's very like wet and gloomy in here, or if it's just like everybody in survival mode because it is very hard out here. Like, the rent is high and the jobs are stressful and there's just like a lot going on, especially in downtown Seattle. So I wonder if it's just to protect themselves. Like, hey, it's a defense mechanism.
That's a good way of looking at it. Interesting. Okay. So as a native, are you open to making friends with newcomers, people from the outside? And what factors influence your approach to forming new connections with people that are outsiders, I'll say,
I'm absolutely open to new friends. I want to find my village. I think the factors are like, what is your living style? Like, what are your habits? What are the things you're into? Like, I like hiking. So I look for common interests, and I definitely look for people who are working on their inner work, like their self-work. So I want healthy relationships. So if it becomes negative, that's definitely a no for me.
Yeah. Same for you, or?
Pretty much the same thing, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty open to make new friends, and, I'm welcoming to everyone, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Seattle is known for its diverse population. How do you think the city has changed over the years, and has this impacted your view on making friends with people? And what I want to focus on is like, the tech industry boom and like everybody moving here. Has that changed your view on like wanting to make friends with people from out of state?
It has, because I worked in the Boeing, in their tech site, and I was doing coffee there, and it was nice to meet people from other places, to get a wider view and like more openness to other cultures. So I've loved getting to know people from other cultures and trying to respect and learn about them.
I hear that. Have you found? Do you think the tech industry has changed it so much that you wouldn't want to make friends with folks that move here?
No, I'd be open for...
You're open?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've chosen to stay in Washington, right?
Yeah.
You've lived here probably most of your life, right? What makes the state so special to you that you've never considered living elsewhere?
Ooh, I love that there's so much less like wildlife. It's like so green because it rains so much. I really love the outdoors and nature, and so for me that gives me all the things that I'm looking for. Great places to hike, like I said. I think that it's big enough where you can find small cities if you're introverted like me, or you can come back to the city and do the big events.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's close enough. You can have both. You can have like the perfect of both worlds.
Yeah.
retreat back to your small town, but come to Seattle for some big events and stuff you want to do. And
yeah, kind of go in and go back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with her. I mean, also, I just enjoy all the seasons. They pretty much have all seasons here in Washington.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, it's not just like one hot season.
Yeah.
Can you share a memorable experience that highlights the welcoming side of Seattle, challenging the Seattle freeze?
Ooh, I think the friends I've made recently, they were like welcoming and loving. Also coming to the Pike Place Market, I see a lot of like joy there. I see a lot of people like interacting, especially there, like downtown. Yeah. I'd say that.
I totally agree. I think everyone's pretty welcoming here, and it's just, just fun place.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Miss Brown. Do you people call you Miss Brown? Do you ever get that?
I don't. I don't.
I don't get Mr. Argo.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. Going back to the 33 thing.
Yeah, no, I don't get Mrs. Brown at all.
Ashley?
No, I get just Ashley.
Just
yeah.
Ashley?
Yeah.
Okay, Ashley. So, now that the tables have turned, first question I got for you. When did you move to Seattle? And, first of all, did you move to Seattle or are you originally from here?
I moved to Seattle, so I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay. And I moved to Seattle in 2013.
Going from very dry to very wet.
Yes.
How was that for you?
It's it's been a journey, I will say that. There's things I like and things I dislike about it. I like how it makes everything fresh and like the air is really clean here.
Yeah.
You can definitely smell it. But I mean, like we're talking about, and like a lot of people have mentioned, it kind of is a bummer for getting out and doing outdoor activities. So I look forward to summertime.
Yeah, we share that in common if you've been watching and paying attention. Okay, so you moved from Albuquerque to Washington. How long ago was that?
So that was 2013, so it'll be 11 years coming up pretty quick here.
Oh wow, past a decade.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've like fully acclimated to being a Washingtonian?
Now I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's like I said, it's taken some time, but yes, I think consider myself a Seattleite. I lived in Seattle for 9.5 years, and then moved out to the suburbs a few years ago.
What are your thoughts on the Seattle freeze? Is it real? And how would you compare that to your experience living in Albuquerque?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like how you phrase that. Yes, I will say that the Seattle freeze is definitely real. I have definitely observed it in action, and the ways I've observed it is mostly like I've met a lot of people. So people, you go to parties and things, especially when I was, younger and I moved here, I was going to a lot of parties, a lot of events, things like that. You meet people and you're like, yeah, we're totally gonna hang out. And you switch numbers and you're just like, yes, we're gonna hang out. And then it's reaching out to people and then them not responding. And then it just kind of dies off from there. I mean, I've met so many different groups of people where it didn't work out. Like at first it worked out and it just didn't. And, and that happens just in life in general. But people here, I as compared to Albuquerque, are a little bit more flaky. People will meet you, but I feel like it's very much like, let's put something on the calendar for 2 or 3 weeks from next Tuesday, and we'll meet at this restaurant and spend money and do all these things. As for in Albuquerque, you meet somebody and they're like, yeah, I'm having a house party on Saturday if you want to come by, kind of thing. So it's definitely a different vibe. I feel like people in areas of sunshine are a little bit more open initially. And here you have to dig deeper and you have to work harder and peel back the layers to really, really let somebody, before someone will let you in. But I do find once they do let you in, they're just like anywhere else really, but it takes longer to get there. You have to drill harder.
Yeah, I've had that thought too. Whenever scheduling a time to like just hang out, even just saying that sentence, scheduling a time to hang out feels so like business oriented, like even just like that is like, this just feels like kind of like, I know it's not inauthentic because we're just gonna hang, but just even the whole kind of experience itself feels inauthentic.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. It's just like we always have to go out and do something versus like just kicking it at somebody's house. And
for sure.
So I have friends that I eventually, met and do that with, but yeah.
So you deal with that, and imagine that can be frustrating. How do you kind of like combat that? How do you deal with it?
So how I dealt with it at first probably wasn't well. I was very confused. You know, I had heard of the Seattle Freeze, but I was very confused. And then when I started learning more about it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. You know, and then seeing the weather, okay, people don't really want to get out. You know, people aren't really trying to talk to you because it's raining or whatever. And so I started meetup groups. So when I lived in Seattle, I ran a few meetup groups, and I met a lot of my friends through there. You know, more or less, most of my best friends I met through meetup, or I met through someone from meetup. So, like for instance, my friend Yasha, I had met her friend. He was holding these meetups for a thing I was interested in, so I started going to those. And then he had a party, invited me. I met her, and so it's just started to be this whole kind of web of circle thing. But most of my best friends I met through meetup that live here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So similar to me, like just kind of like look at trying to find and get plugged into different sort of gatherings. Just have to, it takes some work, like to actually find that.
Yeah.
Do you have an experience that's very memorable to you of doing that sticks out?
Gosh, there's so many. Yeah, I mean, just meeting people like through Meetup and having them be, you know, warm, because a lot of people who are from Meetup or on Meetup groups are not from here, because they're also looking for community. So they're a little bit more open to like, let's get together. If we say we're gonna get together, let's get together.
Right.
Even though the nature of Meetup can be flaky in itself, like with people showing up to your groups and things like that. You know, have you ever ran a Meetup group?
I've never ran a Meetup group, but I've been to plenty of them. But I understand that like there's this sort of, there might be a psychology there where it may be easier for people just to like not show up when they say that they're going to be there, because there's like, you know, it's not like I don't want to make this sound weird, but I like if there was no like ticket to go into there, if there's no form of commitment, it can be easy to just be like, well, I mean, nobody knows me. I'll just won't show up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of them say you have to pay. Like you need to pay them a yearly fee, or they do have where you have to pay for a ticket in order to go to the event. And I can definitely understand that, because you have people that just won't show.
Right.
So, I've experienced so many different things, but I will say it's probably meeting several people through Meetup that kind of changed my mind. Like, oh, there are a lot of other people like me who have moved here and are also feeling lonely and, you know, want to connect. And one of my best friends that I met through, not really a Meetup, but I met at a party of a person that I met at Meetup, another best friend, who was in this video also. She is from here, and she was very open to me, you know, and we met, and then we didn't talk for like 8 months. That's the funny thing. We met at the party, we exchanged numbers, and then we got on Facebook and everything. And then 8 months passed by, and then she was like, oh, it's my birthday. Do you want to come to my birthday party? And I was like, great. And then we were just like,
I thought you moved. I was like, I didn't know what happened to you.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, okay, what's going on here? But yeah, and then after her birthday party, we were like inseparable. So
that's great.
You know, that kind of kills like the whole, well, people from here like don't want to necessarily. I think it just depends. And then I also agree with what you said, that as you get older, just as an adult, it becomes harder to make friends in general. You know, because you get settled in your life, people get married, people have babies, and you know, not everybody, but especially when you have kids and things like that, it's harder to meet up with people. Sure. You know, now, you know, I moved from Seattle to Bonnie Lake. Bonnie Lake is 30 miles south of Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's becoming harder to make plans. I have to make plans ahead and, you know, go out there. I don't mind going out there. I think a lot of people in Seattle have issues with driving, and I think that's another thing. Because a lot of people...
It means more things than one.
Yeah. A lot of people there don't have cars because they don't have to. Like if you live in Capitol Hill or downtown or something, you don't need a car.
Bike.
And if you do have a car, it's like what? Hundreds of dollars a month just to park at the apartment complexes and stuff like that. So I get it. You know, a lot of people don't have cars. But then that changes their view of how far things are in relation to each other. So I'll be like, hey, you know, I'll reach out when I lived in Seattle. I'm like, hey, there's this great restaurant in Bellevue that I want to go try out. Do you want to go? And they're like, oh, Bellevue's far. It's like 5 miles over the I-90 bridge. Like it's not that far. But to them, it's you know, I don't know. So
I will say, like, living in Alabama for like all my life, like driving 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, like didn't really feel like that. I mean, it didn't feel like that much. And I remember moving here and like meeting people who would say like, oh, that's you want to go all the way to Seattle, 30 minutes away. Can we do it next weekend? Like, if I heard stuff like that, I had such a hard time understanding it. But then, like, slowly, I have become my worst enemy. And I now catch myself having those thoughts of, like, oh, but then we gotta drive over there, and then we gotta drive home. So it's like an hour drive, you know? So, and what if the traffic's bad? So, anyway, I have those thoughts too, but I agree with you. I think it's a total mentality thing, and I think you just got to find ways to like trick yourself to get above it, and to just like know, like, I want to make friends, I want to have friends, like figure that out.
Yeah, it becomes difficult to keep in touch with people because when you develop a friendship with anybody, that person also has to be willing to do their part as well, and be able to come out to where you are or meet you halfway or whatever. And I just find that there's a lot of people in Seattle that don't really want to do that. You know, they're just kind of like in their neighborhood, because you know all the pockets and all the different neighborhoods in Seattle. People kind of just get stuck in their little like neighborhood, and they're just like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
So, but now that I'm in Bonnie Lake, I'm like, I don't want to leave either. So but I still like going out there and visiting my friends. So I'll do it. You know, and like you said, you come from Alabama.
Sure.
I came from Albuquerque, and it's the desert, so everything's spread out. If I want to go visit one of my friends, I'm driving 45 minutes, and I'm so used to doing that. I'm just like, 20 minutes is nothing.
Not that
30
big of a
minutes
deal.
is nothing, you know. So.
Yeah, it's totally like a mind thing.
All right, everyone. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed all of those full-length interviews. I really enjoy doing it, and as I said previously, I really do want to start doing more interviews now that I'm getting more used to it. I was very nervous starting off, but I think it's really kind of like the man on the street interviews that everybody likes watching, you know, on YouTube. I really liked doing it, so I am definitely going to be doing more of these types of videos about different topics, and, you know, maybe actually go out into the heart of Capitol Hill and, you know, interview more people about more things. I think it'll be fun. So thanks for watching and taking the time to do that. I know it's very lengthy, but again, I thought it was important to show what other people, you know, were saying in their full interview, you know, because I didn't get to put all of my 5 questions in. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or you're moving to Washington and I can help you, my information is in the description box down below. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.